No one in Obodago remembered when the curse first began. They only knew the signs when the rivers stained into dirty streaks of mud, when women's wombs turned against them, and when children began to die in their sleep, breathless and blue-lipped. It had been almost a century since the last disaster, but the elders had grown too comfortable with time and forgotten the warnings sealed in ancient chants. Every 100 years, death will crawl out of the forest, and the land shall choke. The first child to die was the daughter of Ezoku, the palm wine tapper, a bright-eyed girl of 7 who laughed too much and picked flowers when she thought no one was watching. She went to sleep healthy. By morning, her mother's scream woke the entire village. The girl's body was ice cold, her small mouth wide open as though she had been trying to scream back at death. The second death came barely a week later, then another and another. Before long, the village square turned into a place of mourning. Small bodies wrapped in faded clothes, graves dug shallow because the earth refused to welcome them deep. The animals followed next: goats, sheep, fowls, even the dogs howled their final cries before collapsing beneath dying trees. By the time the crops withered and the yam barns turned to dust, the people knew the curse had returned. At the palace, King Odogu sat with his head bowed low, sweat tracing patterns on his weary face despite the chill of the evening. His guards stood silent, watching his heavy breathing and waiting. It was not weakness that bent the king's shoulders. It was the unbearable truth that no medicine man, no herbs, no prayer could fight what had come upon them. He had called for the chief priest. The chief priest, Ogbuefi Nwokolo, was a man carved from shadow. His face was a mask of blackened wrinkles, his fingers stained by years of blood sacrifices. When he spoke, his words seemed to crawl from beneath the earth itself. The gods have spoken. His voice rasped like dry leaves cracking underfoot. Your reign, my king, has come to its end. King Odogu's heart stopped for a moment. What madness do you speak, Nwokolo? I am king. And so it was written, for every 100 years the reign must pass. The curse is bound to the lineage. It cannot be broken unless the law is obeyed. What law? The king thundered, though dread already gnawed at his bones. Nwokolo's lips curled. For 1,000 years the ancestors gave your kindred the crown, so long as 20 virgins were buried beneath the full moon whenever the land began to rot. The silence that followed pressed against the king's ears like a scream. But the old ways are tired, Nwokolo said softly. The gods now hunger for something more daring, a man who will step into the evil forest and return alive, bearing the golden staff. The room darkened as though the words themselves had stolen light from the torches. No one has ever survived the evil forest, the king's voice cracked. No one yet, said the priest. The king's palace grew cold with silence after the chief priest's departure. Servants whispered in corners, guards exchanged dark glances, and the drums that usually beat at sundown remained mute. Obinna watched his father from a shadowed corner of the great hall. He had listened to everything: the curse, the virgins, the evil forest. His heart burned with shame. His people were dying, and all the elders spoke of was a tradition, was sacrifice and fear. That night, as the moon sat bloated and yellow in the sky, Obinna entered his father's chambers. without being summoned. You called me your legacy, he said, standing tall despite the weight in his chest. The king did not answer. His gaze was lost somewhere beyond the cracked windows, beyond the palace walls, beyond this dying village. Then let me save your legacy. The king turned slowly, his old eyes narrowing. You will not speak such foolishness in this place. It is not foolish, father. I will go. I will go to the evil forest. To the evil forest? The king spat. You will go to your death. Then I will meet death standing. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, the king's shoulders sagged with defeat. You are my only son, Obinna. That is why it must be me, Obinna said. Word spread like wildfire. Obinna, the heir to the throne, had volunteered to enter the evil forest, a place no man had entered and lived to speak of. Some called him brave, others called him cursed already. On the evening of his departure, Ada came to him beneath the ancient Iroko tree. There they had first spoken of love. Her face was swollen from crying, her hands cold and trembling as she clutched his. Why does it have to be you? He said nothing. Words were useless now. You promised me. You promised to build us a home, to watch our children grow. Her voice broke. Are you really going to leave me for the darkness of that place? Obinna cupped her face gently. If I come back, I will be king. I will tear down this curse with my own hands, and we will have the life we dreamed of. And if you don't, she whispered. He pressed his forehead to hers and let them remember that someone tried. She clung to him until the elders pulled them apart. The laws of Obodoagu were clear. 5 kindreds, 5 men, one from each bloodline. Together they would face whatever horrors lay beyond the mouth of the evil forest. Obinna could not go alone. The next day, the square filled with trembling men pretending at courage, but from the mass of faces, 4 others stepped forward, not forced, not bribed, willing. Ikenna, tall and scarred from battles past, a hunter known for killing a panther with bare hands. Otiegu, the quiet farmer with a heart heavier than his muzzles. His wife and children had both died in the recent sickness. Namdi, the priest's nephew, rumored to have the sight, though no one believed it until he spoke of dreams that came true. Carlo, the youngest, barely of age, but fierce in his loyalty to his bloodline. They stood beside Obinna before the chief priest, 5 men, 5 names that would either be remembered as heroes or disappear like smoke. At the boundary of the forest, Nwokolo performed the final rites, marking their foreheads with ashes and blood. You cross now, he said, into a place where even the gods refused to follow. Without a word, Obinna stepped into the darkness and others followed. Behind them, Ada fell to her knees, her cries swallowed by the howling wind. They entered the evil forest like men walking into their own graves. The air was thick with a smell of decay. The trees twisted like they were alive, watching. There was no sun, no moon, just a sky stained grey, day and night blending like smoke and ash. No one spoke. Their first terror came without warning. As Otiegu stepped forward, the ground beneath him cracked open like the jaws of the beast. His scream split the silence. One leg disappeared into the earth, then his waist. The others froze. Help me! Help me! Otiegu's voice was wild with fear. Obinna didn't think. He rushed forward, grabbing Otiegu's arms, shouting words from the old tongue his grandmother once whispered, words meant to chase away evil spirits. The earth groaned, then spat Otiegu out like a bone too hard to chew. They sat in silence for hours after that. shaking, breathing hard. But the forest wasn't done with them. By the third day, hunger gnawed at their bones. Their lips cracked, their eyes hollowed. That was when they saw her. She appeared from nowhere, a woman of beauty, too perfect to be human, skin like river stones, hair like night, a smile too sweet to trust. She held a tray of steaming food, fresh yam, thick soup, the smell pulling at their starving bellies. Eat, she said, her voice soft as wind, and you will live. Obina's heart screamed no. Namdi shook his head. Otiegu pulled Carlo's arm. Don't touch it, they warned. But Carlo, young Carlo, hunger had stolen his sense. He grabbed the food, ate with tears running down his cheeks. At first, nothing happened. Then his belly swelled like a drum, growing bigger, bigger, until the skin tore like a sound, like clothes ripping. Carlo fell dead, his eyes wide with shock. They buried him beneath cursed soil and moved on, their hearts heavy. A white dove appeared soon after, silently glowing faintly. It led them forward, step by step. They followed it without question. At night, Otiego would sing songs of his ancestors and beat softly on a drum he had carved from dead wood. The songs gave them courage for a while. Days bled into weeks. Time no longer mattered. The forest was a place of madness. Otiego was the next to fall. One night, they camped beneath a tree whose roots pulled like veins. As Otiego sang, something unseen dragged him, screaming into the darkness. They found only his drum, broken in half. Now they were three. Nnamdi too grew weak. He had seen visions of his death. He gave Obinna a charm of protection before he died quietly in his sleep, his breath fading like a candle's last flicker. Obinna and Ikenna pressed on. At last, they reached the heart of the forest, a temple built of bone and fire. There upon a pedestal sat the golden staff. It shimmered with lights, not of this world. Obinna stepped forward, and Ikenna struck a blow to the head. Darkness. Ikenna was gone, along with the staff. Ikenna returned to Oboragu, holding the golden staff high. I have returned! I have returned, he declared. I am the new king. The curse is broken. The people cheered. The chief priest crowned him beneath a sky as black as death. But the children still died. The animals still rotted. Hunger still stalked the land. Ada, missing Obinna, cried, wept until her body gave no more tears. Obinna's father, King Odogu, fell into silence, lost in shame. Many moons later, a man appeared at the village, going through the village gates, dirty, thin as a ghost, hair wild, eyes burning like fireflies. Obinna, he carried the true golden staff, wrapped in clothes stained with blood and ash. The people gasped, the earth trembled. The Canaan staff is a lie, Obinna said, his voice harsh but unbroken. The true staff lay hidden beneath the altar. Ikenna took only what he saw, but I found what was meant to be found. He told of his battles with the beasts of smoke, of spirits who tried to steal his name, of rivers made of blood, and trees that which whispered of death. He had survived, not by strength, but by faith and love, by the memory of Ada, because that memory had pulled him through. The chief priest knelt. The true king has returned. Ikenna was dragged from the palace. After hearing Obinna's story, how Ikenna had struck him because of his greed to be king, Ikenna was dragged out of the palace, beaten and cursed, banished into the wild to wander until his bones became part of the earth. Obinna lifted the true staff high. Lightning split the skies. Rain poured down for the first time in years, washing death from the land. Crops sprang green from cracked soil. Children laughed. Animals danced in circles as though reborn. The curse was broken. At last, Obinna married Ada beneath the great Iroko tree. They danced, they wept, and kissed beneath a sky of stars. And the people of Obodagu sang songs of a king who had walked through death and returned for love. But as Obinna and Ada held hands, an old woman watched from the edge of the crowd. Her eyes burned red in the dark. She smiled, a smile too wide. The curse may sleep, she whispered, but curses do not die, not truly. Far away deep in the evil forest, something ancient stared awake, waiting. If you believe that love conquers all, please do well to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on our more heartwarming stories. See you on the next one. Cheers.